I know René Beyker for many, many years. For how long?
2002, was it we met?
So it's like almost 15 years,
Yes.
and it has been very surprising for me that how many things we share together during teaching, during watching the shows, during our discussions after the festival performances. But there is also a very specific part of the profession that stays untouched. All of these discussions that we do while walking, while swimming, while having dinners, they are, from my point of view, are extremely interesting for the wider circle of people, for professionals. And our today's discussion is about life of puppeteer, how we entertain ourselves while living, and how actually we can train our professional muscles while being just the human beings in everyday life. René, the life is beautiful, and there are so many things around, and you are so extremely gifted, at least in one more thing than puppetry. These languages that you, it is amazing skills and very easy to find pleasure in life using different languages. Why puppetry? Why among everything you chose such a strange, not evident things, not obvious, that you constantly have to convince people and yourself that this mainer thing, it is not mainstream, it is aside, it is. Why?
It chose me.
How did it scream?
How did it choose me?
René, I'm here.
Well, a little bit like that. You're right about languages. I trained as a bilingual secretary, and I worked for nearly 10 years. And when I became a puppeteer, actually, I was the personal assistant of the managing director of a German investment bank in London. I wasn't your usual personal assistant. I didn't dress, but suits and things. And I had to stop that life for a while to help my mother, my parents, and because my mother had an operation on her back, and I went to work. They had a garden nursery, so it was physical work, and she couldn't do it, so I went up there. And I was digging in the garden one day.
Searching not for treasure?
Not searching for treasure. It was, I can remember exactly, I can remember, they were astilbes. I was dividing astilbes. It's a type of plant, don't worry. And I remember where I was, I can remember the sky, and I just had this thought that to be a puppeteer. No, seriously.
Out of the blue?
Out of the blue.
No, how? Knowing nothing about it?
No, because when I thought about it, it was a very strong feeling, and when I thought about it, I thought, where have I seen puppetry? And I hadn't. All I could think of was when I was living and working in Hamburg, in Germany, I'd seen a busker with a string marionette on a street. That's all I could think of. And when I asked my mother, she said, no, we didn't see puppet shows. And when I became a puppeteer at the Little Angel, she said, if I'd known this theatre existed when you were children, I would have brought you, because we lived very close. So this very strong feeling came to me. So the next day I said to my parents, I'm sorry, I have to go, and it's all very crazy. I got the car and I went an hour to Newcastle, to the nearest big town, looking for a puppet.
So it's a kind of spiritual call, or so, because if you don't know,
yes,
if you have not seen anything like real, alive, as what
Nothing
also
but
happened to me,
yeah.
So it is in a way kind of potential call, theoretical guessing, so that it can be something that you did not experience
Yes.
yet as a spectator, but that you can imagine doing and enjoying.
Yes, I think it was something like that. Maybe I had seen more than I remembered I'd seen. Maybe something had gone in somewhere. But yes, it was this very strange thing. So then I went looking for a puppet. And I found...
You were looking for puppet or for puppeteer or for puppet company to watch?
No.
What I was looking for a puppet.
I got the car and I drove an hour to Newcastle looking for a puppet, but I didn't know what I was looking for.
Looking where? On the streets or in the shops?
I didn't know. Well, I went in the shops and I found a Pelham puppet. Do you know the Pelham puppets?
No.
And Pelham puppets are old toys from the, I don't know, 50s, I suppose, and 60s, string marionettes, but as toys, so they're very
loose.
Very loose, they're not, and I found a puppet, that's what I thought a puppet
was.
In
an antique shop?
In a toy shop, I think I found it,
mm-hmm.
yeah. And I came home and I was trying something with it, and I thought, no, maybe that's not quite right. So the next day I went again, and I found, this time in a bookshop, I found the David Carell's book. Can't remember what it's called now, but it was pink. And basically it was, at that time, so this was 1988, it must have been the puppeteers, it was like the puppeteer's Bible at that time. And in the back, so there was a lot of making and a little bit about performing, and in the back was the address of the Puppet Centre in London. This feeling had been so strong, I said to my parents, I'm sorry, I need a couple of days holiday. I went down to London, I walked into the Puppet Centre and said, I want to be a puppeteer, how do I do it? They said, well, there's a summer school happening and it's 2 weeks away, see if you can apply there. So I applied for a summer school organised by Ronnie Ledru and Caroline Astelbert. And I said, no, it was 5 weeks away. I said, do you take beginners? And they said, oh yes, but I don't think they knew what an absolute beginner I was.
And how old were you at that
28.
Ah, 28.
27.
So quite mature
28.
person,
yes, yeah,
but
yes,
not
yeah.
very experienced.
Yeah. Anyway, that's...
But this is the beginning, this is a first call. And now, after all these years,
so,
still, why puppets?
1988, 30 years now.
30 years anniversary.
Yeah.
And now, if you're asked the same question from all these years of experience, what still keeps you there? Because now you have an options. Now you can do anything, and you are very free, as far as I know, in changing your life radically and switching and shifting focus from one personal perspective to professional and etc. So now, if you have to define or to specify what is so special about this that keeps you all these years motivated with a very fresh interest towards it, with a multi options to find yourself.
I think it's something about the fact that it can never be the same twice. Firstly, it's very funny that things walk, talk, come alive. It's, you know, it's a pleasurable feeling, I think, to handle things. I love touch. I love making things. I love when I'm working with other people, when I'm training, and I love that moment when something comes alive in their hands, and then there's this thing where they have a kind of a smile that happens.
Objects or people?
People, the people. So I see people kind of doing something and they've been trying and they've been making it come, and then suddenly it does it on its own, and you can almost see them watching and a little smile. On my website you'll find a little minute of a few of those smiles that I've captured. So there's... Excuse me.
That's exactly what it is about.
Yes, exactly. Phew, people smile when they bring you alive. Do you want to... Yeah, here you go. You stay there. You can join in, you can read my notes. There you are. Exactly. It's fun, it's just amazing. And with puppetry, I think it's such a complete and never-ending form. Firstly, it really does combine everything, the visual, the tactile, kinesthetic, meaning-making, so in a way writing, narrative. It's so complete. And yet, people watching, they don't know how
it works.
How it works. Yeah.
I've heard, I cannot find confirmation anymore, but at some point I was very interested in this phenomenon of bringing things to life, and I read that actually in our brain there are different parts of the brain that are responsible for perception, dead objects and living creatures. And I started thinking that what a huge subconscious work happens in audience mind, because if it is really different parts of the brain, me watching you and me watching armchair,
yes,
and then suddenly this armchair comes alive, so what happens in my brain, it is like a very revolutionary, almost sacred feeling.
But I think it's very primitive. I really think that it touches that primitive part in us. We were more animistic. Rocks were alive. Everything had life, and it's in there, deep, deep, deep inside us. Maybe in that very primitive part of our brain. That's interesting what you say, and I think that's also why we can watch a performance, a puppet performance, and we're watching beautiful puppetry and very well manipulated, and the puppet just does something very funny. Just a little thing like on its own, its hand just flop. That's the moment that gets people, wow.
Accidental.
Yeah, because it looks as though it has done it on its own. We really do want everything to be alive, subconsciously somewhere. I didn't know that there was actually, isn't it great now that they can do brain scans and actually understand which parts of the brain are activated?
It's like a domain. It's like a domain of the brain that it's like a part of the brain that is perceiving domain of inanimate, and the part of the brain that is responsible for perception of the domain of live things. And then I just realized that it is a huge, huge explosion in brain when we see puppet show, because we know for sure that they're not alive, and we see for sure that they're coming.
Yes.
So what happens in the, it would be very interesting just to make this research. Great. So, and now it is like, I don't much like these reflections of professional puppeteers, or actually mostly journalists that think, oh, this is a miracle, this is so like la 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 la. Actually it is, for us it is like a almost anatomy. Yeah, we have to cut everything in pieces, and we have to analyze how it works. It is still, there is a skeleton of the profession. There are a lot of things that we have to be very cynical about. We have to be very practical about. So
we're like musicians. You know, they make music. When you hear the music, it's sublime. You're not thinking about how it's, but you have to understand how to make the music and your craft. Yes.
So what are these different, very specific millimeters and seconds of the profession that we can really put into pieces to analyze how it works and enjoy recreating over and over again? Elementary puppetry. What are these elements in our puppetry?
The elementary part is your relationship and handling of the object. And when I say object, I mean puppet as well. It can be a figure or it can be an object. Our contact with it, for me, that's the absolute center of it. And not only the physical contact, but also our attitude, our mind contact with it. Because if I am too strong in my force of what I do, or my force of what I want it to do, we will see a puppeteer animating a puppet. We see both. If I can get my touch, that contact right, I will see the puppet live. If I don't touch it at all, it can't live either. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's this place between this is you, this is me, here is our point of contact. What can I do to help you come alive? I think that's the first thing. So how we even actually touch, hold, provoke, give impulses, in order to create the life rather than putting life onto it.
Mm-hmm. And this is actually not only approach that helps to bring puppet alive, but it is also a way of thinking in life in general. It is how we perceive life. Is it like something that we try to force everything ourselves? Level of the content. So not only how, but actually what. It's how we treat human beings and how we treat the context of the human beings.
I hadn't realized that aspect of it until students of mine very often would say, well, actually, doing this has changed my relationship with the world, has changed not just my relationship with objects and handling them in different ways, but actually what I see out there. And it's allowing more of life to come to me, affect me, touch my imagination, and allow me to perceive, I think, perceive different things and awaken things in me, which then I can use.
So it is both observation and readiness to respond. It's like a constant dialogue with the reality and listening. So observing, listening and communicating with the reality rather than...
Yes, but you can't go around doing that all day, every day. Otherwise it's like, you know, it all becomes too special. It has to become very natural as well. But we can train ourselves in it. I think there are some very important things about being a puppeteer, which I call the invisible muscles, training the invisible muscles.
So this can be like an everyday training for puppeteer.
Yes.
So what would this training include?
That includes building your capacity to concentrate and having a light concentration, so you can actually watch what's happening in front of you. You can observe the puppet. I'm not heavy concentrated, I'm really concentrated on it. That's too strong. But you are able to concentrate. So that's one invisible muscle. And very often by day 3 of one of my courses, people are going, my God, my brain hurts. They've not done anything, but it's just concentration. It's like being in a mental gym.
And this is something, what you mentioned, it's about having already puppet in front of you or treating something as a potential...
No, I think you can actually train it, like exercise, out in the real world. I do a lot of training out of the real world to get away from the actual puppet or the object, you know? Away from the pressure of having to make it come alive. All of these things, actually, I do very often walking. But the concentration you can do by allowing yourself to be attracted by something. So I'm walking somewhere and I see, I don't know, a leaf caught in a spider's web and the wind is moving it. This is what I call a private performance. So I can sit and watch it and observe it with the same, I suppose, integrity as if I was watching a piece of dance. So you just watch and observe something happening in front of you, not analysing,
enjoying.
Just, you can enjoy, but also just allowing it to happen. Because when we come back to our puppet, I think we need to allow it to happen. We need to be, in a way, observing and witnessing at the same time as provoking, in order to not be too strong in our intention. And it's surprisingly difficult to sit and just watch something. Because what happens in life is we tend to, I don't know, we see a beautiful sunset and we say, God, look at that beautiful sunset, isn't that beautiful? Once it's named, we stop. We go to something else. But just to sit and be with it and experience it actually is quite
challenge.
Yes, and it also can feel quite scary because we're not completely in control of our experience then either. So I love to go out and let myself be stopped by the little private performances and watch. So that's for concentration.
The concentration on moving object in front of
Yes.
you, or on this miracle, or on yourself as well at the same moment.
No, on the thing
On
that's
the
happening.
things.
For example, if you look at a tree with moving leaves, to be able to focus on one of them and watch one. Because that also is what happens with puppetry. And it's very difficult because we want to look everywhere. But you have my puppet, there are other puppets on stage, everything is happening around, and I need to be able to just be with one part whilst I see the whole. I think, you know, I invented these games for myself, but they became very, very, very serious. After many years of performing and making theatre and international touring and all of this, I had a burnout. I collapsed, I stopped, and everything stopped. And I stopped my job, I stopped where I was living, I stopped who I was living with, everything just went. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't even know what red is.
What
red
is?
You know, I could say that's red, that helmet is red, but it had no resonance, no nothing. So being a very practical person, I thought, well, in that case, I better start looking at red things. So I looked at red things. I just only wanted to notice red things. It's amazing out there in the world. If you just choose one focus, and all the details you see and all the different kinds of red I would see. So inspired by this, I would give myself a little exercise every day to go out in the world and do some seeing and hearing. And so that's why I started doing it, to teach myself, again, to connect somehow with the world and what was happening. It increased my sensitivity of what to see, all the details. I mean, St. Petersburg is an amazing place for textures on the walls and all these things. And then I realized how useful it could be doing this. One time that really impacted me, I was just in a field and I was watching very black clouds coming in on a white cloud. So there was a bit of blue sky, one white cloud, and these black clouds just coming to it, you know, and it eventually engulfed it. And I realized, after I'd watched the little performance, I realized there were three possibilities in that. One cloud, the white cloud, looked a little like a winged horse. So if I'd been looking for a show, what show shall I make? I'm looking for a story, what shall I do? Maybe that would have been an inspiration for Pegasus. It also taught me about a certain rhythm of swallowing something up. So I could just learn that rhythm and it had power. And the other was a way to create a feeling of despair. So if I'd wanted to create a moment of despair on stage, maybe I might have chosen that engulfing movement. I try not to think about those things whilst I'm watching, but afterwards, if I have ideas, I always go with a little notebook.
So if we speak about applications and about applying this experience into profession, so in the beginning it is important just to enjoy the process.
Yes.
And the making an exercise, how it can be used or how it can be applied to the certain need of theatre making.
Yes.
It is the next step.
That's the next step.
And what else from the everyday experience? Like, for example, you mentioned now several things about learning from nature or just enjoying nature, natural movement,
Yes.
observation for something that happens in the natural landscape.
Yes.
What else can puppeteer do every day in order to train themselves or himself?
Okay, I think there's probably, maybe not every day, but at least one of these every day. I think they need to get out of their heads and into their bodies.
Out
of your head and into your body.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is very important. So it might be whatever you want to do. I do Qigong, I walk. But somebody might like to do Feldenkrais or Alexander, or they have their own warm-ups. But definitely to be in your body and to become aware of the kinesthetics of your body. Because actually puppeteers do use their body, and sometimes we don't use it in a good way. So even just becoming aware of your body, that's something very important. Handling objects, just playing, just doing nothing in particular, messing about, you know. So you can take anything, you know, a piece of my notes, you know. It's just finding out what it likes to do rather than trying to do something special with it. And I like doing that with puppets as well. Even puppets I've used again and again and again. If I just take it and just play, new things will come. So that's in a way training your touch. I think that walking every day is very important. And allowing things to attract you. So for example, the walk I did this morning, I just went out. I saw, what did I see? I saw an amazing reflection in a boat window of the water, of the sun on the water on the river. And so that was something I watched. I saw a woman carrying a bouquet of flowers as if it was a trophy, and she had a beautiful smile on her face. I saw a shadow of a lamppost next to the shadow of a tree, and so one was very, very straight shadow like this, but right next to it was a kind of wobbly shadow. And in that, what I like to do with that is you find stories in that.
So it is attentive walking. It is not just walking.
It is attentive walking, but allowing things to call you. So attraction. I call them dings. We have in our life, we have aha moments. You know, where you have a realization, and we remember those big ones. But there are so many tiny ones every day that we don't pay attention to.
And actually, shows are made of this.
They are made of
small ones.
Yes.
Not only big events in the show, but details matter.
Exactly. I went into the church just down the road, and I was looking one of, I don't know what they are, it's one of the icons on a stand, yeah? And I was looking, and it was beautiful, and then I got attracted to the wall, which was blue, and it had all water stains all the way down it, and it looked like tears. And the juxtaposition, so it's allowing the imagination. This is another one of those invisible muscles. Imagination, perception and imagination. Mm-hmm. And spontaneity.
And so it is also no need to name these metaphors. So for example, if I see the water stains on the wall, I don't necessarily straight away name it as a tears of.
You don't have to. If it does happen, that I write it down in my little notebook. I may use it, I might not use it. There was a time, I make performances like this as well, and I was working with students at the Institut del Teatre in Barcelona, making a performance, and I asked them to do this dings process. So they were supposed to write down a ding. If you're making your food in the evening, and you suddenly think of something, or something occurs to you, or you see something, just write it down and then carry on making your food. And one young man, he came to me every rehearsal, he said, "René, I'm trying I'm trying, I want to have these dings. and on Sunday I did what you did. I take my notebook and I went into the forest and there was no dings. And I said, don't worry, it's okay. One day he came to me and he said, I had a ding, but it's very strange. I said, what? And he said, the mermaid sang and the moon exploded.
What?
He said, I don't know what it means. I said, doesn't matter, we write it down. And by the time we had made the performance, we knew what that meant. Because actually, it was a man and a woman and a letter, and things came, and at one point she was underwater and she had been dressed in blue. We didn't do it on purpose. And little fishes, a love letter had been torn up. His love letter was torn up and became fish, and she was underwater with his love letter. And at the very end of the show, we had created a moon out of ice that dripped throughout the whole show. And at the end, he shot it and it exploded.
So no dings.
It was a proper ding. Mm.
But it was ding like an idea. He didn't observe.
That was an idea. Dings are anything. They might be observation. It might be just an idea. You know the quality of it. Mm-hmm. It's just something that. Well, becoming a puppeteer was my ding. Mm-hmm. It's
quite unexpected.
Yes. Yeah. So that's a lot of what you can do on your walks. What else can you do on your walks? I'll just have a little look.
Yes.
Because I had other games you can play on your walks. Alone. Focusing on the colour. Mm-hmm. It is just fantastic. You go on a bus ride and you think, I'm only going to see orange things, and let them come to you. It's amazing.
Is it like training the muscle of the eyes, or is it about getting surprised because of focusing on one thing, selecting? Or is it also about vitamin for the eyes?
I think it's a vitamin for the eyes and the imagination. Okay, sometimes you go looking, but actually when you start looking, you don't see as much. You find out that I just had orange in my head, and I just seen, now I see that cloth there, which has got orange, which I hadn't really seen before. You see things you've never seen before.
So it is a tool, it is a zoom.
Yes.
It is a zoom to see things that are not noticeable other way.
Yeah. And you get
otherwise
many ideas and inspirations, or just a feeling of being alive from it. So that's exercise. We're talking about exercise. So becoming sensitive to colours, or I might say textures, next one. Mm-hmm. Or I might say, today I'm going to, on my walks, I call them my working walks, because in a way you have to just switch your mind on to being open like that, and then at the end of the walk say, that's enough. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise it's like the whole world is a bit, whoa, a bit crazy. So it might be textures, or find the stories.
Finding the stories already prepared for you, like reading the stories that are already there, or searching for the stories, a little bit creating them. Is it
allowing
passive?
them.
Is it like a passive involvement, or is it I have to help a little bit story to happen?
No, it's passive. You just go, okay, I've just seen one here. What's the story between that suitcase and that camera, for example?
Composition kind of story.
The compositions will attract you, and then because relationship is meaning, we will make meaning out of it, and then stories come. And that's a really great game, because suddenly, a drain pipe suddenly is having a relationship with, a leaf that might be underneath it. And that's again training for meaning making as well. I think it was Leonardo da Vinci, or it's attributed to Leonardo da Vinci, and I'm only going to paraphrase it because I don't know. But he said, I think, look into the stains on the walls and the ashes of the fire. Everything you need is in there. So it's the same. It's We don't have to invent everything ourselves. But our desire as puppeteers particularly is to make it happen. I make it happen. But I like training this other part about allowing the world or the puppet or the object to also propose. I propose in my impulses, you propose, and we meet in this middle place. What else? The other thing you can do on your walk is look for rhythms. And the finding the stories is a little bit as well anthropomorphizing. Yeah. Anthropomorphizing is a little bit of a dirty word in puppetry because we sometimes take it to mean just making little humans. But I don't think it is. I think
it is psychological.
I think it's more psychological, yeah.
Not visually.
Yeah. So we can, and I think it's important to have this leap of the imagination in order to make meaning out of abstract things. So if I'm watching something, another one I remember, in Turku, I was walking to work early in the morning and there was roadworks and there was a lamp saying, "Don't fall down the hole." And this lamp was blinking. And the way it was blinking, I thought, that's being very seductive. And I thought, oh. Then once you have that first thought, it's being very seductive, then I say, why? Why? What's it actually doing for me to understand seduction?
How it affects.
Yes. Yeah. So it's partly the tempo, and partly it was because it wasn't going flat, flat, flat. It was kind of going...
Not aggressive, but a little bit.
No, it was like that.
Flirting.
Flirting, it was flirting with me. Another one I remember watching on the other side of the river, I saw 3 cars going, and their rhythm and the distance between them, they were on a mission. But they weren't related. But I make the meaning out of it. So I think this is very useful because I can understand how rhythm makes meaning, and also I can also study some very specific rhythms. If I want to study the rhythm of a dog, for example, I can look. But I also like just allowing a movement to suggest meaning. Because if I then want to have 3 objects on stage on a mission, all I need to do what I learnt from those 3 cars. The spacing and the speed.
Tempo, rhythm.
And it's the rhythm, because rhythm is just... rhythm is life, actually. Rhythm is life, and rhythm is story, and rhythm is meaning. In one of the courses I do puppets and emotion, if we do certain rhythms, we will interpret emotion. You don't have to say, don't have to explain it, you just do it.
Now we are exploring a world around us and trying to get what can be interesting for us professionally. I'm wondering if anything from observing human beings can teach us about inanimate objects. So now we are observing nature, but not people, and we apply objects towards human psychology and perception. What can we learn about people considering them as part of puppetry? I think that this kind of general discussion, not very, very specific, but general discussion about enjoying life, being professional or remaining professional, is something that I really enjoy in being able to discuss with professionals, because what I noticed, not so many colleagues of ours are ready to talk about profession. It's a huge surprise for me. I know only very, very few friends who really constantly can analyze what they are doing professionally and share it. So thank you.
Oh, that's okay.
So what can we learn from people?
Right, people, the same thing. Okay, so again, this morning, I'll just take, because I do this. What we try to do when we observe people is we try to see the whole thing. If you want to go out and practice observing people, one thing at a time. So I was sitting on a terrace writing my notes, Right? And I thought, now I'm just going to watch the rhythm of their walk. I'm on the main street here, everybody walking this way, that way. Oh my God, it was so beautiful. Every walk is different, but I was only watching their feet and legs. Right? That's it. Amazing, amazing. Then I decided to shift my focus, and I thought, I'm just going to watch how they handle objects. What objects have they got? Again, the different ways people have their bags, even how they use their phones. Wonderful, but just how their contact with an object.
And they are screaming of specifics of this very
total,
human being.
Yes, which is great for actors and puppeteers to be specific. This is it, we're not specific enough often. With these little tiny, simple details makes a whole character. Then I decided, because one of the bags was swinging in a nice kind of way. It was on somebody's shoulder and it was just...
Independently.
It was like independent. So then I thought, now I'm just going to watch how the objects want to move, how the objects are moving because of the people, but they're not aware that they're making the object move. I saw crazy things. This guy had his earphones out of his pocket and they were going because he was really going along like this and they were going like that. It's just great. And again, because if in puppetry we're dealing with essences and essentials and simplifications. Mm-hmm. So we train ourselves to see simplification. I have one exercise that makes people go, the students. 2 pairs of sticks, 2 people, 4 sticks, and they have to make them walk so that I understand. One way I understand cat, I understand dog.
You mean 4?
I don't know if I can do it straight away.
You mean 4 legs?
4 legs,
mm-hmm.
Right? Or I understand horse.
Mm-hmm.
It's just in the different ways the cat touches the ground, how the rhythm of the dog moves, and the horse is different. It's an incredible thing, but you have to understand the essence of that catness or the essence of dogness in order to be able to do that. And that's what we need to do with puppets. So with humans, I could understand the essence of that human, and then I can become a character.
So we are balancing between generalization, dogness, catness, humanness, and then very, very specific things that make this humanness particular. This very human.
Yeah. And again, thinking about puppetry, say I have a cloth and I want to show cow. If I observe a cow, I only have 2 hands. So somehow I have 2 possibilities of creating cow. So if I can get it down to 2 things, even better. So the way that the head goes forward and the way that the body rolls, if I can do those 2 essentials, I will suggest cow.
Interesting. Does it mean that it makes sense sometimes to represent cowness without illustrating the cow?
I think it's much more satisfying.
So it means that when we speak about animalistic character or concrete anthropomorphic character, at some point it makes sense to make to present nature of this character without illustrating the...
If possible, yes. Yes. I think it's very important to do that when we take something that has no form already. If I take a cloth or a piece of paper or a completely different object and I want to show cow or cat, I think then you have to work with those essences of their movement rhythm, because there's no form, there's no shape, there's no picture of a cow, a sculpture of a cow to tell us what to think. And if we don't get those essences, we will rely on the puppeteer saying, I want to show you, this is a cow, and they will force it too much, possibly.
And actually it also brings us to the fact that metaphorical thinking, that it is not illustrative fable kind of, that is all fables, you know, all these animals and all of these people. So it becomes more about something than about somebody, and experiencing this kind of metaphysical feelings towards our experience. It's not about somebody, it's about us facing something in life, something that we don't.
Very important as well in this we've been talking about animals and humans and characters and kind of living beings, but I think it's also very important to study how wind works and water works. So often we get
natural engines,
and how that movement is created. When so often we see in puppetry, somebody gets a boat and they do this. That's not how water works. That's not how it works. If it's on the sea, it will come up from underneath. You will rise on a wave, and as the wave goes, you come down. And if you can create, if you've observed how the essence and the impulse of how that wave really works, and you put it with your imagination underneath, you imagine that it's hitting the boat from underneath, we will be transported, because, again, coming back to the same, we want to believe it really is alive. We don't want somebody showing us it's alive.
Yes, but isn't it the reason of this, of all of this? Because actually water or wind can be easily related or interpreted as something that moves us, our emotions.
Yes. And this kind of observation of water, wind, we have so many cliches when we bring an object onto stage and want to show it. I ask students very often to observe a candle flame. It's completely different. If we want to do a candle flame, what do? We do this, you know. I'm showing you my idea, beautifully done maybe.
Recognizable.
Recognizable, but it's only my idea of a candle flame. If I go home and actually observe one, and then learn, let that candle teach me the movement I put into my hand, you will have somehow, it'll be a little bit more mysterious, a little bit, you're not quite sure, because you're not watching somebody's idea.
Because it will not be illustration,
Exactly.
So it will be harder to guess,
yes,
but much more pleasant to follow.
Yes. And very, very important with everything to do with wind and water, because we see it so much in puppetry. And also then, again, coming back to the animals. So, for example, a piece of paper on a stick. If I observe fly, mosquito, fish, butterfly, we very often do that. We have a bit, and I'm going to show you a fly, and I just do you my idea. And it might be playful and enjoyable. It might be the style that is needed. Who knows? I'm not saying it's wrong,
yes.
but if I really observe fly, how it goes, I will discover something new. And then all I do is I let that fly teach me. So my one piece of paper on a stick, you could swap from mosquito to fly to butterfly to fish just by understanding its essential movement. And then the pleasure of the audience is not, look, I'm showing you my mosquito, but it's like going, I'm seeing a mosquito. It's a different experience for the audience.
I'm wondering what else is this natural source of movement, what else brings objects alive in everyday life? It is wind, water, what else moves?
Moves things.
Moves things, what?
Well, people can move things too, but in a casual way. Things get left in a certain place, or, it's animals move things, insects. Very interesting to observe insects.
How insects?
How insects. And the trajectory of ants is fabulous. What lines they take. So that's it. How things move in space is also something to take care of.
Also, movement and composition.
Yes, yeah? Yeah. Because it's meaningful. It's not only what the object says and does, the actions it does, but how it does it, where it does it.
How it changes the whole thing.
Changes everything. Yeah. There's one course I do, space and composition, not on your list. And it is about just reading. You know, if I place an object here and I place an object here in a square, how that changes from if I just move it slightly, the meaning's different. And it's again another game that I can play for myself. It's all about becoming, I think, sensitive to the things that puppeteers use. And I think it's very important that puppeteers learn to invent their own games and exercises. They can go and play.
What can be the place where we can exchange all of our experience of our personal games, rituals, and exercises?
Oh God, that would be great.
What is this professional field, professional activity, where we can suddenly just come all together, professionals, not necessarily teachers and students, but what is this ideal circumstances where we suddenly sharing our professional joys? What is this format? What can it be?
What can it be?
If we are to establish, if we don't have to think.
But I think it could be a really great kind of research, because I'm sure every puppeteer has their own things they do. What do you do? What do you do to keep yourself alive to objects? Oh, I know one thing. I do it too. Just go to flea markets and just observe things.
Yeah, for me it is like, I call it myself, it's I have to let them calm down, these things. I have to adopt them. I have to take them. I have to, yes, because I know that even though they are not probably active in my reality, but I know that they have to belong to someone. So from homeless to adoption.
But there you are.
Yeah, for me this is the point of flea markets.
And there are other things, I think, with everyday objects, I think they are meaningful to us already, or we can identify with things at different times of our life. We can identify with different things.
And somehow I think that it is easier, for me at least, to identify myself with a wounded object rather than with a completely new experience, some kind of object with the troubles.
But on the other hand, I also rather enjoy a very simple washing up sponge and say, who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Just so not always exotic, beautiful, amazing.
Not necessarily. Ordinary is also.
Ordinary can be very, very revealing. Again, in one of the courses I do, which is more towards therapeutic, but also for puppeteers, because we need to cast our objects. If we do object theatre casting, who's going to play the role of Romeo and Juliet? It's very interesting having a whole load of objects and say, okay, casting. But if I do it for therapists, then I ask them to choose an object to represent themselves and one significant other person. That's incredible. And very simple objects. I remember one woman chose, I can't remember what she chose for herself, but she said for her mother, she had a shopping bag, a plastic shopping bag. She said, this is my mother. She supports me. She's carried me through so many experiences in my life. And then she got the object and she went, and it was full of air. And she said, but sometimes she doesn't let me breathe. You know, and it's a very simple shopping bag. So I think we can find meaning in everything. I mean, I love the old and the broken and the unusual and the technique, something from the 1930s that you might not find, or a little wheel. I love its aesthetics and the fact it has so much history, but I also do love I have learnt to love the very ordinary as well. So in my travelling suitcase, when I come with objects, there's all sorts in there.
Good.
Would like to say that I think it's important for puppeteers to create their own exercises, and also if they have training. So for example, this week I did shifting focus, and I asked them to apply it to making breakfast. And I think then you can create your own training. I had to create my own training, apart from this is a physical warm-up, and this is a technique of puppetry. Keeping myself alive and interested for 30 years as a puppeteer, I had to invent this other kind of training. Shall I tell you one more story?
Yes.
When I decided I was seriously going to do my seeing and listening exercises every day, I did a project once at the in Fredrikstad in Norway, in the school that used to be a puppetry school. And it's on a small island, a military island, and it's just like this, the houses. So very small streets, very square. And I went out after work, I went out and I did my seeing and listening exercise. So I was standing in the street looking up at a tree. It was autumn, and there was a lamp post and the amazing light display of the leaves. And I was looking up at this. And a man came by with his dog, and he looked at me. And I thought, that's okay, I'm just... But it was not too unusual. So I was just looking at a tree, but not too surprising. I went round the corner and I heard rain coming out of a drain pipe, and it was just making an amazing sound composition on a piece of metal underneath. So I was like this, but really, and the same man with the dog came by. And I almost jumped up to go, oh God, he's going to think I'm mad. And I thought, no, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing, and I have to do this. I just carried on and let him go.
And he probably thought, oh, I'm again with my dog, so she sees me for the second time. Yeah, so not to be afraid to look strange.
No, that was a turning point for me to not worry.
So we are doing our professional
training.
training.
Yes, yeah.
And we are proud of it.
I'm proud of it. What does that lamppost say?
Okay. Okay, we are listening
Yes.
to the materials.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. I think for the beginning it is just
I think
fine.
that's just fine.